The sun dipped low over Dubai's skyline, casting golden light on the glass towers that pierced the evening sky. From her penthouse balcony, Alina Farah could see the city glittering like 1,000 scattered diamonds. Somewhere across town, in the most extravagant ballroom at the Burj Al Arab, her ex-husband, Ryan Khalid, was marrying Sophia Bennett, a woman nearly 10 years younger, with porcelain skin, wide blue eyes, and the kind of youthful confidence that once made Alina's heart ache with envy. Alina had not been invited. She had not even received a courtesy message. But Dubai was small in its own way, and whispers traveled fast. She had heard about the event weeks ago, how Sophia had been fitted for a custom gown from Paris, how Ryan had spared no expense, flying in celebrity chefs and hiring a famous Lebanese singer to perform at the reception. The city's elite were all there: tycoons, sheikhs, influencers, and socialites. The photos were already beginning to flood social media. Ryan in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, Sophia glowing like a jewel under the crystal chandeliers. Her phone buzzed on the glass table beside her. A friend had sent another picture, this time of Ryan holding Sophia's hand, slipping a diamond ring onto her finger as photographers captured every angle. Alina's eyes lingered on the image, tracing the face she once knew so well. He looked happy, but she also saw something in his eyes, something small and fleeting that others would miss. "Don't," she whispered to herself, sliding the phone screen down and setting it face down. She wouldn't give herself the luxury of dwelling on what was gone. It wasn't that she didn't love him anymore. That love had been burned away slowly, like paper curling to ash. It was the betrayal that lingered, the quiet cruelty of being replaced, the humiliation of seeing her marriage dissolve into gossip fodder for people who sipped champagne and whispered behind manicured hands. The world believed she had been defeated. They thought Ryan had traded up, leaving her for Sophia's youth and so-called charm. They didn't know what Alina still had: the mind that had helped build Ryan's empire, the contacts in industries he didn't understand, the kind of resilience that came from watching everything burn and still walking away in heels. Alina poured herself a glass of deep red wine, the kind she had once shared with Ryan on nights they had dreamed about conquering the world together. She stepped to the edge of the balcony, letting the warm desert wind brush over her hair. Below, the city hummed with luxury cars and midnight diners. Somewhere out there, her ex-husband was celebrating what he thought was a victory. But Alina knew better. This wasn't the end of her story. It was the prologue to something bigger, something brighter. She wasn't going to fight Sophia for Ryan's attention. She wasn't going to play the bitter ex-wife. She was going to rise so high that both of them would have to crane their necks to see her. And when that day came, when their smiles began to falter and their confidence turned into envy, she would simply smile back, because true revenge wasn't about destroying them. It was about becoming untouchable. Tonight, they had their wedding. Tomorrow, she would begin building her empire. The chill of a Paris morning wrapped around Alina as she stepped out of her rented apartment on Rue Saint-Honoré, the heart of the city's luxury district. The street smelled faintly of fresh bread from the boulangerie down the block, mingling with the crisp perfume drifting from designer storefronts. This was a place where fashion wasn't just sold, it was lived. And for Alina, it was the perfect place to begin again. She had arrived in Paris 3 months earlier, her savings carefully transferred from Dubai after she sold her shares in a small chain of beauty spas she once co-owned with Ryan. Every dirham had been counted, every expense calculated. She wasn't here to spend money, she was here to grow it. The boutique was small but perfect, a renovated corner shop with tall glass windows that invited passers-by to stop and stare. Inside, soft golden lighting bathed the carefully curated displays: hand-stitched evening gowns, silk scarves from artisans in Morocco, bespoke handbags designed exclusively for her store. She called it Maison Farah, a name that rolled off the tongue like a secret only the stylish understood. From the moment the doors opened, Alina worked relentlessly. She wasn't just the owner, she was the buyer, the marketer, the stylist, and sometimes the delivery girl. She personally greeted every client, remembering their names, their preferences, even the little details about their lives that made them feel special. Word spread quickly through the Paris elite. Maison Farah wasn't just a store, it was an experience. Her phone buzzed constantly with new orders and event invitations, but one notification always slipped past her filters: Sophia Bennett's Instagram posts. She didn't follow her, of course, but their circles still overlapped online. Almost daily, Sophia uploaded glossy snapshots, sipping champagne on a yacht in Mykonos, posing in a couture gown at an Abu Dhabi art gala, or leaning into Ryan's chest with a caption about forever love. The comments overflowed with envy from strangers and validation from friends. Alina would glance at these posts for only a second before locking her phone, but deep down, she could feel something sharp, like a stone lodged under her skin. It wasn't because she wanted Ryan back. It was because Sophia's performance was exactly that, a performance. Alina knew Ryan's habits, his weaknesses, the way his charm could mask a rotting foundation. She knew the cracks would show eventually, and when they did, she intended to be standing on higher ground. Her chance to climb came faster than expected. One afternoon, a well-known French actress stepped into Maison Farah, accompanied by 2 assistants. She needed a gown for a Cannes Film Festival after-party, and she needed it fast. Alina's calm confidence and eye for detail turned a rushed fitting into a flawless ensemble. 2 weeks later, photos of the actress in Maison Farah flooded international magazines, with captions calling the design fresh, timeless, and impossibly elegant. From there, the momentum snowballed. Luxury magazines requested interviews. Fashion bloggers began tagging her store. High-profile clients booked private showings, arriving in chauffeured cars with bodyguards and personal stylists. Alina started receiving invitations to exclusive Parisian events, the kind of gatherings where business was discussed over champagne, and alliances were built with a glance and a handshake. Meanwhile, Sophia's posts grew even more extravagant, as though she sensed a shift. She wore bolder dresses, tagged more luxury brands, and flaunted gifts from Ryan that dripped in diamonds. But Alina noticed something else. Sophia's smile was changing. It looked tighter, her eyes slightly less certain. One evening after closing the boutique, Alina walked across Pont Alexandre III, the Seine reflecting the golden lamps like 1,000 flickering candles. Paris had begun to feel like hers. Its elegance, its rhythm, its silent respect for those who earned their place. She thought of Ryan and Sophia somewhere out there, living in their curated perfection. She didn't need to post her life for the world to see. She was building something far more lasting, and soon the world, Ryan and Sophia included, would have no choice but to notice. The invitation arrived in the kind of envelope that spoke its own language: thick ivory paper, edges gilded in gold, sealed with a crest she recognized instantly. Alina slid her finger under the wax and opened it slowly, almost savoring the moment. Inside was a handwritten note from Lady Catherine Ashworth, a British royal who had become one of her most loyal clients since discovering Maison Farah. Lady Catherine was hosting an exclusive charity gala at the Dorchester in London, with attendance limited to a handful of world leaders, philanthropists, and industry icons. The invitation was personal, not sent through a PR agency, not copied to dozens of names, just hers. Alina leaned back in her chair, letting the sunlight from the boutique's tall windows warm her face. This wasn't just an event, it was a statement. Lady Catherine had worn one of Alina's gowns at a Monaco art auction and called her a rare talent. Now, she was offering her a platform where the most influential people in Europe would be watching. It was the kind of event Sophia had publicly hinted at wanting to attend. Alina could almost imagine the look on her face when the guest list leaked, and leak it did. 2 days later, an article appeared in Lux Society UK listing some of the confirmed attendees: Tucked between tech billionaires and aristocrats was the name Alina Farah, founder of Maison Farah, Paris. Sophia's name was nowhere to be found. It didn't take long for the ripple to reach her. A mutual acquaintance in Dubai sent Alina a discreet message. "She's not taking it well. Keeps asking Ryan why you were invited, and she wasn't." Alina replied with nothing more than a polite thank you for the information, but inside, there was a quiet satisfaction. This was not about petty revenge. It was about showing, without a single word, that she belonged in rooms Sophia couldn't even enter. In the weeks leading up to the gala, Alina worked on her dress. Not just any dress. This would be her armor. She designed it herself, a floor-length gown in deep emerald silk with a back drape that flowed like liquid and hand-embroidered crystals catching the light with every movement. Her Paris atelier worked day and night until the gown was perfect. The night before she was due to leave for London, she caught a glimpse of Sophia's latest post, a luxury dinner with Ryan in a private Dubai skyscraper suite, captioned with "Our love conquers all." But Alina noticed the comments. People were asking why they weren't attending the gala. Some even mentioned her name. Sophia had replied to none of them. When Alina's private car pulled up to Charles de Gaulle Airport the next morning, her luggage was neatly stacked. Her emerald gown packed in a garment case with protective layers, her jewelry secured in a velvet box. As the plane took off toward London, she gazed out the window at the clouds and thought of how far she had come since watching their wedding from her balcony in Dubai. Back then, they had celebrated their beginning. Now, she was preparing for her own re-entry, one they would never forget. The Dorchester's grand ballroom glittered under a canopy of crystal chandeliers, the air thick with the scent of rare orchids and expensive perfume. Outside, a line of black Bentleys and Rolls Royces purred at the entrance, delivering the kind of guests whose names filled headlines. As Alina stepped out of her car, a dozen camera flashes erupted in quick succession. She wore a custom gold gown that clung perfectly to her figure, every inch hand-beaded so it caught the light like molten sunlight. The neckline was elegant but daring, the back sweeping low, the hem trailing in a soft shimmer behind her. Her hair was pulled into a sleek chignon, a diamond cuff at her wrist, and a single emerald ring, her quiet signature. When she entered the ballroom, the hum of conversation faltered. Heads turned instinctively, some guests pausing mid-sentence. The gold of her gown reflected in the chandeliers above, casting a glow around her that made her look as though she belonged not just in the room, but at its center. Ryan saw her first. He was standing near the champagne fountain, a glass in his hand, Sophia at his side in a blush silk dress. His expression froze, not in shock, but in that brief, unguarded moment when memory crashes into the present. Sophia noticed the shift immediately, her smile tightening as she followed his gaze. "Alina Farah?" someone whispered behind them, the name traveling in low tones across the ballroom. "Maison Farah, Paris, the one dressing the royals now." Alina didn't glance at Ryan or Sophia. Instead, she moved with calm precision toward Lady Catherine, who was waiting near the head table. At Alina's side walked two billionaire investors, one from Singapore, the other from Geneva, both dressed in sharp tuxedos, both clearly enjoying the attention that followed them in her wake. They had come as her guests, each having invested heavily in her boutique's global expansion. Sophia's grip on her champagne flute tightened. She forced a smile as a pair of women in couture leaned close to admire Alina's gown, asking in hushed voices if it was one of hers. Ryan's silence only made it worse. At the dinner portion of the gala, Alina was seated at the prime table, directly across from a British tech magnate and 2 seats down from a royal duke. Ryan and Sophia, by contrast, had been placed farther along the side tables, close enough to watch her, but far enough to be reminded that influence dictated seating charts here. Between courses, photographers roamed, snapping candid shots for society pages. One image captured Alina mid-laugh with the Singaporean investor, her hand lightly on his arm. Ryan's jaw tightened when he noticed, but Alina never once broke her easy composure to acknowledge him. Throughout the night, the whispers continued, about her boutique, about the starlet in Cannes who had worn her design, about her rumored expansion into New York. By the time the gala drew to a close, she had secured 2 new investors and an invitation to a Milan fashion summit. As she left, walking past Ryan and Sophia without a pause, the weight of the evening hung in the air. Sophia's smile was brittle, her eyes sharp. Ryan's gaze followed her until she disappeared into the lobby, the gold of her gown vanishing into the night like the final flare of a firework. For Alina, it wasn't about outshining them. It was about showing them she no longer lived in their shadow. And judging by the way the entire room had revolved around her, the message had landed perfectly. The clinking of fine crystal and the soft murmur of voices filled the Dorchester's ballroom as the main course was served, delicate portions of seared sea bass with saffron risotto. Alina sat poised at the center of the prime table, the emerald ring on her finger catching the light each time she lifted her wine glass. Conversations drifted from philanthropy to politics, then naturally to business. It was Lord Harrington, a British shipping magnate seated to her left, who asked, "Alina, I've heard rumors you've made quite the acquisition recently. Care to share?" His tone was casual, but the table leaned in. Alina smiled, the kind that revealed nothing and promised everything. "Yes," she said lightly, dabbing her lips with a linen napkin before continuing. "I've just completed the purchase of Belle Homme." There was a noticeable pause. Belle Homme was not just any brand. It was a century-old French luxury house famous for its couture handbags and limited edition silk gowns. The very brand Sophia had once paraded on her wish lists, tagging Ryan in posts with captions like "someday." "Oh, Belle Homme!" Lady Catherine's eyes sparkled. "I remember Sophia mentioning she wanted Ryan to buy that for her. Such a shame, isn't it, Ryan?" Ryan's fork paused midair, and his expression flickered, just for a moment. Sophia's smile froze, her knuckles whitening around her wine glass. "Yes, shame," Ryan muttered, looking down at his plate. Alina continued as though she hadn't noticed the tension, her voice warm and measured. "We'll be expanding Belle Homme's presence in Asia next year. It's an untapped market for the brand, and I believe there's great potential. We're already collaborating with a few royals on exclusive designs." Across the table, a soft chuckle came from the Singaporean investor seated beside her. "She's modest. The deal was worth more than most people here would spend in a lifetime." More whispers rippled through the group. Sophia shifted uncomfortably, her eyes darting toward the exits. Someone asked Alina how she managed the acquisition, but before she could answer, Sophia excused herself, claiming she needed some air. Ryan hesitated, glancing between Alina and his wife. For a second, it seemed he might follow Sophia, but instead he stayed in his seat, his gaze returning to Alina. She didn't look at him, focusing instead on describing her vision for Belle Homme's future. When the dessert was served, delicate chocolate soufflés dusted with gold, Sophia still hadn't returned. Her absence spoke louder than any argument could. Alina knew it wasn't cruelty driving her. It was control. She hadn't raised her voice, hadn't made a single cutting remark, yet the room understood exactly what had happened. By the time the dinner ended, Alina had secured not only new partners for Belle Homme, but also a quiet victory. Sophia would leave the gala remembered only for her absence. And Alina? She would be remembered as the woman who turned a whispered rumor into undeniable reality. The gala was beginning to thin as the orchestra shifted to softer, slower melodies. Outside, the Dorchester's private garden glowed under strings of golden lights and flickering candles placed along the stone paths. The scent of jasmine floated in the cool night air. Alina had stepped away from the noise of the ballroom, her heels clicking lightly against the cobblestones as she wandered toward a quiet corner lined with rose bushes. She stood there for a moment, sipping the last of her champagne, watching the candlelight dance in the glass. The garden was peaceful, removed from the tension inside. But she wasn't alone for long. Alina, the sound of her name was low, almost hesitant. She turned to find Ryan standing a few steps away, his tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, a half-finished drink in his hand. For a brief second, it was as if the years had folded in on themselves, and she was looking at the man she had once loved. "You clean up well," she said evenly, her voice polite but cool. He smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You've changed," he said, taking a step closer. "Not just the way you look, the way you carry yourself. I knew you were strong, but I think I underestimated you." Alina held his gaze, her expression unreadable. "No, Ryan, you didn't underestimate me. You just thought I would stay in the place you left me." A flicker of something crossed his face. Regret, perhaps, or recognition. He looked as if he wanted to say more, but before he could, the faint rustle of movement caught Alina's attention. She didn't have to turn her head to know they were being watched. On the second-floor balcony above the garden, Sophia stood partially hidden behind the railing. The soft light from inside cast her face in shadow, but the stiffness of her posture betrayed her mood. Even from a distance, Alina could feel the sharp edge of Sophia's stare. Ryan seemed oblivious at first, his eyes lingering on Alina longer than they should have. "You've built something remarkable," he said quietly. "Everyone in that room is talking about you." "And yet," Alina replied, her tone calm, "none of it has anything to do with you." She set her glass down on a nearby table. "Enjoy your evening, Ryan. Your wife is waiting." With that, she turned and walked back toward the ballroom, the gold fabric of her gown catching every flicker of candlelight. Ryan stood there, watching her go, while above them, Sophia's grip tightened on the balcony rail until her knuckles turned white. For Alina, the exchange was nothing more than a reminder of how far she'd come and how little she needed from the past. For Sophia, it was a seed planted deep in her mind, one that would grow into a relentless, gnawing insecurity. Winter in New York had a way of turning everything into a stage. The streets glistened with fresh snow, store windows dressed in elaborate holiday displays, and the air buzzed with the energy of a city that never truly slept. In the heart of Fifth Avenue, a new storefront was drawing more attention than even the season's most extravagant decorations. Maison Farah, now in its grandest form yet. The flagship store was a masterpiece. Floor-to-ceiling glass showcased sleek interiors of marble and brushed gold, with soft lighting that made every gown and accessory glow. The opening night was an event in itself. Celebrities, editors from Vogue and Harper's Bazaar, and influencers from around the world arrived in black cars, stepping onto a champagne-colored carpet. Photographers called Alina's name as she emerged in a tailored winter white coat and matching silk gown, her presence commanding the kind of attention that only years of precision and patience could buy. Inside, she moved with ease, introducing guests to the collections displayed like art installations. Each piece told a story, merging Parisian craftsmanship with subtle Eastern influences, a nod to her heritage. The New York launch cemented her as not just a designer, but a global force in luxury fashion. Within weeks, Vogue ran a cover story calling her the Queen of Modern Elegance, praising her for redefining the meaning of power dressing. Features followed in Elle, Vanity Fair, and the New York Times, all echoing the same narrative. Alina Farah wasn't simply selling clothing, she was selling a vision of sophistication that resonated across continents. Meanwhile, thousands of miles away in Dubai, Sophia watched the coverage with a growing knot in her stomach. The sight of Alina, surrounded by the world's elite, smiling effortlessly for cameras, was more than she could bear. Determined to reclaim some spotlight, she announced her own boutique launch in Dubai Mall. She named it La Belle Maison, a name that was strikingly similar to Alina's, though without the reputation to back it. The opening was flashy, complete with a ribbon-cutting ceremony, champagne towers, and performances by local musicians. But beneath the glitter, cracks began to show. Sophia's designs were inconsistent, her branding confused, and her pricing too high for the quality offered. Industry insiders whispered that the store was more about appearances than business. 3 months later, La Belle Maison quietly closed its doors. Reports cited operational challenges, but those in Dubai's fashion circles knew the truth. It had failed to draw serious clientele. Sophia stopped posting about it altogether, reverting to personal lifestyle photos on social media, though the comments section was merciless in pointing out the contrast between her and Alina's paths. Back in New York, Alina barely noticed. She was too busy finalizing plans for her next flagship in Tokyo and securing a partnership with one of the biggest luxury department stores in the world. In private moments, she allowed herself a quiet smile, not because Sophia's venture had failed, but because her own success had made comparisons inevitable. She hadn't spoken to Ryan since that night in the garden, but she knew word of her empire's expansion had reached him. It didn't matter whether it stung his pride or stirred his regret. What mattered was that she was no longer the woman left behind. She was the woman they all now had to keep up with. The grand hall of the Palazzo Serbelloni in Milan shimmered with gold leaf ceilings, glittering chandeliers, and a crowd dressed in the finest couture. Tonight's charity auction was one of the most prestigious in Europe, drawing royalty, billionaires, and international celebrities. Alina arrived in a sleek black velvet gown with a plunging back, her hair in soft waves, a diamond pin glinting just above her ear. She was accompanied by the CEO of an Italian luxury watch brand, one of her latest business collaborators. And the sight of them together caused a ripple of interest the moment they stepped into the room. The evening began with paintings from emerging artists, rare vintage wines, and collectors' handbags. Alina listened politely, occasionally raising her paddle for a piece she knew would appreciate in value. But she was waiting for the highlight of the night, the unveiling of La Stella di Nate, a rare diamond necklace once owned by a European duchess. When the velvet cloth was lifted from the display case, gasps filled the room. The necklace was breathtaking, a cascade of flawless diamonds centered by a deep blue sapphire that caught every glint of light. The auctioneer's voice rang out and the bidding began. From the corner of her eye, Alina noticed movement. Sophia, dressed in an over-embellished silver gown, she was seated 2 tables away with Ryan, who looked slightly uncomfortable in the charged atmosphere. The moment Sophia's paddle went up, Alina understood exactly what was about to happen. The bidding escalated quickly, paddles flashing as numbers climbed into the millions. At 1.8 million euro, Sophia raised her paddle with a triumphant smile, clearly believing the room would yield. The auctioneer looked ready to call it when Alina lifted her paddle, her expression calm and unhurried. 2 million euros, she said clearly, her voice carrying just enough to turn heads. Sophia's eyes narrowed, her lips pressing into a thin line. Without hesitation, she countered, 2.2 million euro. Alina didn't blink. 2.5. The tension thickened, whispers running through the tables as guests began to realize the dynamic at play. The auctioneer's eyes darted between the 2 women, his voice quickening with excitement. At 2.8 million euro, Sophia hesitated. She glanced at Ryan, who leaned toward her, speaking low and urgent. Still, she lifted her paddle. 2.9. Alina let the pause stretch just long enough to make her point. Then, with the faintest smile, she raised her paddle one last time. 3 million. The room erupted in soft murmurs. The auctioneer, sensing the drama's peak, scanned for any further bids. Sophia's hand hovered, then dropped slowly to her lap. Her smile was gone. Sold, the auctioneer declared, his gavel coming down with a sharp crack. To the woman who always wins, Miss Alina Farah. Laughter and applause followed, some playful, some admiring. Alina simply inclined her head in acknowledgement, the picture of composed victory. The necklace was brought to her table, and she examined it briefly before setting it aside, more interested in the principal than the prize. Across the room, Sophia sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact as Ryan shifted uncomfortably beside her. The statement had been made without a single insult, only numbers, presence, and timing. By the end of the night, the story had already spread among Milan's elite. Sophia had tried to outshine Alina and failed spectacularly in front of the most influential people in the fashion world. And as Alina left the palazzo, the cool night air on her skin, she knew the nickname the auctioneer had given her would follow her from that night on. The Monaco Art Pavilion was a modern palace of glass and marble, its walls lined with priceless works from contemporary masters. The evening's exhibition, an exclusive preview for the world's top collectors, was packed with the wealthy and the well-connected, their conversations a low hum beneath the soft music. Alina moved through the crowd in an ivory silk dress that caught the light like water, pausing now and then to admire a piece or exchange greetings with acquaintances. She was discussing a commissioned sculpture with a French art dealer when she felt the shift in the air, a subtle tightening, as though the room itself was bracing for something. Turning, she saw Sophia making her way across the gallery floor, her heels clicking sharply against the polished stone. Her expression was taut, her eyes fixed on Alina like a target. Without hesitation, Sophia stepped into Alina's space, ignoring the murmurs from nearby guests. "You've been following me, undermining me, making me look like a fool," she said, her voice pitched just loud enough to draw attention. "What is it you want, Alina? To ruin my life?" The conversation around them faltered. A few phones were discreetly lifted, their cameras already rolling. Alina remained perfectly still, her gaze calm, her tone measured when she answered. "Sophia," she said softly, "I don't need to ruin you. You're doing that yourself." The words hung in the air, light yet cutting, and the smallest curve of a smile touched her lips before she stepped past Sophia, as though nothing more needed to be said. Gasps and whispers followed her exit. Sophia stood frozen for a moment, her cheeks flushed, aware now of the small crowd gathering a few meters away. She turned sharply, muttering something under her breath, but the damage was done. By the next morning, the clip had made its way to social media. Set against the backdrop of the sleek Monaco gallery, the video of Alina's calm reply spread like wildfire, earning millions of views in hours. Comments poured in. "That's how you handle an enemy. Pure class." "Queen behavior. No shouting, no drama, just truth." Meanwhile, luxury blogs dissected every detail: the gowns, the art, the lingering look on Ryan's face when the video reached him. Sophia tried to post a vague response about choosing kindness over hate, but the internet had already decided who had won. For Alina, it wasn't about the viral moment. It was about walking away knowing she had maintained her composure, her dignity intact, while Sophia had exposed her own insecurity to the world. And in circles like theirs, reputation was everything. That night, as Alina stood on the balcony of her Monaco suite, the Mediterranean stretching endlessly before her, she felt the quiet satisfaction of a war won without raising her voice. The Aegean Sea shimmered under the late afternoon sun, its waters so clear they looked painted. Off the coast of Santorini, a sleek white yacht rocked gently, anchored just far enough from the shore to feel like another world. On the upper deck, Alina stood with a glass of champagne in hand, the wind catching her hair, the distant cliffs of whitewashed houses framed behind her like a postcard. Around her, the atmosphere was effortless and warm. Friends from Paris, Milan, and New York lounged on sunbeds, laughter drifting through the air. A few of her closest business partners, men and women who had stood beside her through each expansion, clinked glasses and spoke about upcoming ventures. The table was laid with fresh seafood, ripe figs, and chilled bottles of vintage champagne. It wasn't a celebration for a single achievement. It was a celebration of her life, as it was now. As the sun began to sink lower, painting the sky in streaks of gold and coral, someone pointed toward the shore. There, Barely distinguishable from the crowd on the promenade stood Ryan and Sophia. They weren't here for her, but fate had placed them close enough to witness what they had once doubted was possible. Ryan's hands were in his pockets, his posture tense, while Sophia stood beside him in silence, her face drawn and tired. From this distance, Alina couldn't read their expressions perfectly, but she didn't need to. She could feel the weight of what they were seeing. A woman they had once dismissed, now untouchable, surrounded by success, happiness, and the kind of company they could no longer keep. One of her friends, noticing them, leaned in. "Do you want us to move the boat? Avoid them?" Alina shook her head, her eyes never leaving the shore. "No need. Let them watch." She turned toward the group, lifting her glass. The conversations quieted, and cameras, both professional and personal, were raised instinctively. With the sea breeze brushing against her cheek and the last light of the day settling over the deck, she spoke clearly, her voice carrying the weight of her journey. "Revenge," she said, pausing just long enough for the word to sink in, "isn't destroying someone. It's living better without them." The group erupted in applause and laughter, glasses clinking in a chorus of crystal. Someone caught the moment on video, framing her against the sunset, champagne glass raised, the yacht glowing in golden light. By the time the clip reached social media, it would be replayed millions of times, shared as a masterclass in poise and power. On shore, Ryan shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Sophia, whose gaze was locked on the yacht. They didn't wave, and Alina didn't either. Some goodbyes were better left unspoken. As the yacht's engines rumbled to life and it began to glide away from the coast, Alina turned her back to the shore. The horizon lay open ahead, and with it, a life entirely her own. No longer shadowed by betrayal, but illuminated by everything she had built in spite of it. For her, this wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of one where she wrote every chapter.